Welcome back to the deep dive. If you still picture mining as just dusty guys in hard hats with 20th century gear, you are missing one of the biggest transformations happening in the global economy right now.
Absolutely. Our sources today, they just paint a picture of the global mine being completely redesigned from the ground up.
It's not just an extraction industry anymore.
No, it's moving to this integrated, data-driven system.
Yeah.
And that's a really crucial distinction. What we're seeing isn't just, small improvements. It's a forced evolution.
Forced by what exactly?
Well, it's a convergence of three huge forces. First, the just insatiable global demand for critical minerals. Second, this massive technological leap with automation and algorithms.
And the third one has to be ESG.
Exactly. The non-negotiable environmental, social, and governance mandates. They're all hitting at once.
Okay, so let's try and unpack this. The goal of our deep dive today is to, synthesize this massive orchestration. We're going way beyond just geology and engineering.
Yeah, we have to. We're looking at integrated value chain strategy. I mean, a lot of these decisions are being made in control rooms thousands of kilometers away from the actual mine site.
That's amazing.
It is. So we've got a huge mission ahead of us. We need to explore the tech changes, like how mines are using predictive analytics to plan blasting.
Right, and the physical stuff needed for things like digital twins.
Exactly. And then we'll track the big geopolitical plays that are shaping who gets what minerals. I mean, from the competition for Nevada gold to this, just colossal new copper discovery in South America.
And I think this is the most critical part. We have to look at the human side of this. We need to show you, the listener, where all the new jobs are popping up for 2026.
And why the people getting those jobs will look, radically different. It's this combination of operational know-how and data science.
So the main theme here is that the old straight line dig, process, sell is gone.
It's gone. It's now this dynamic feedback loop.
Yeah.
A decision on sustainability informs your automation strategy, and both of those are now, completely tied to global geopolitics. It's all connected.
Let's start at the very beginning of that process then, before any rock is even moved.
Right.
Blasting.
Right.
Our sources show that the old image of blasting is, it's just obsolete. It's gone from this high-risk, messy, manual cost center into something totally different.
It's now a strategic, data-driven engine for what they're calling smart mining. It's a complete shift.
A shift from what to what exactly?
From brute force to predictive math. Historically, drill and blast was just about fragmentation, breaking rock so you could move it.
But it was also a huge source of problems.
Oh, a massive source. Safety exposure, regulatory headaches from, communities complaining about vibrations, and huge downstream costs if you didn't get that fragmentation just right.
And now, here in 2025, it's all about digital optimization, AI, precision timing. It's all integrated into the mine plan. How does that digital layer actually work in the blast design?
Well, we're seeing this huge shift from paper-based designs to really sophisticated 3D blast design software.
So something like Orica's next-gen SHE Plus.
That's a perfect example. That kind of system lets engineers create a full digital model of the blast site.
Right.
They pull in seismic data, geological models, sensor feedback, everything.
So instead of just a static plan for the blast, they're running simulations.
Precisely. They can model these complex what-if scenarios in seconds. They can tweak tiny variables, hole spacing, the charge per meter, the electronic timing sequences, and see the outcome.
All to get the perfect fragmentation.
That's the whole goal, to optimize the explosive energy to get a specific desired rock size. Because if you get that right at the start, everything that follows, the hauling, the crushing, the milling, it all becomes exponentially more energy efficient and cost effective.
I saw one source said these tools can cut planning time by up to 75%.
In complex pits, absolutely. It's a massive time saver.
But, the design is only one part of it. How do you make sure the real-world blast actually matches that fancy 3D model?
That's where the data stream comes in. The digital design is paired with this whole interconnected monitoring layer. We're talking sensors and IoT devices all over the mine site.
What kind of sensors?
Real-time intelligence. So you've got high-speed vibration sensors measuring ground movement, stereo imaging scanners that assess the pile of rock right after the blast.
And wireless initiation systems.
Yeah, replacing all the old manual wires. It all feeds back into the system.
So what's the tangible benefit of that feedback loop? Especially for, the people living nearby.
It's all about predictability and control. When you can control the timing of each detonator down to the millisecond, you can actually shape the seismic wave.
You can steer it In a way.
In a way, yeah.
Right.
And the studies on this are really robust. These systems can cut vibration by up to 40%. 40%.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That directly impacts community relations, regulatory compliance, your social license to operate.
It strengthens it immensely. And this is where ESG gets really granular, right down to the molecular level. The chemistry of the explosives is changing too.
How so?
Well, it's all driven by sustainability pressure. There's a huge transition to lead-free electronic detonators.
Which means less hazardous waste.
Dramatically less. And at the same time, it improves the timing precision because the lead-free systems are just more reliable in harsh conditions.
And they're developing green explosives now.
Yeah, that's the term some are using. It's about developing lower toxicity chemical blends, minimizing nitrogen oxide emissions, all the stuff you don't want going into the air.
So this isn't some niche tech. This is completely restructuring a massive market.
Oh, it's enormous. The global explosives market is valued at USD 47.7 billion in 2025. And that whole market is now aligning with two things: ESG-friendly chemistry and digital compatibility.
The investors are demanding it.
They are. And get this, the market just for the automation services for blasting, that alone is projected to hit almost $2.5 billion by 2035. That's growing at nearly 13% a year.
That's not incremental change. That's a tectonic shift.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it all links back to that initial point about cost. Blasting can be up to 30% of your total operating costs. So if you optimize it,
The leverage is massive.
that's the key. Getting better fragmentation doesn't just cut that 30% cost, it generates huge returns downstream. Less energy for crushing, better mill throughput, faster haul cycles. It's like solving a major energy bottleneck for the whole operation.
Okay, so now we have to zoom out from the blast and look at the whole mine. Our sources make this really profound point. The digital layer is now inseparable from the physical layout. You have to engineer the flow of information and the flow of rock at the same time.
This is probably the biggest philosophical shift in modern mining. The digital twin, that dynamic high-fidelity model that's constantly updated by sensors.
Simulating everything from geology to water flow.
Everything. It's not just a cool visualization tool anymore. It's a design input. It fundamentally dictates where you put physical things.
Can you explain what you mean by data architecture becoming a physical constraint? I'm guessing it's more than just putting up a Wi-Fi router.
Yeah, a lot more. I mean, if your whole mine runs on real-time data for control and safety, you have to physically engineer the pathways for that data from day one.
So like tunnels for cables.
Exactly. Protected corridors for hardened fiber optic cables that can survive ground movement and blast shockwaves. You need dedicated protected platforms for your sensor arrays and repeaters. And yeah, the secure control rooms, which might be thousands of kilometers away, need guaranteed redundant connections.
Data architecture literally becomes spatial engineering.
That's the perfect way to put it. And this is where autonomy really comes in. If your haul truck or your drill rig is autonomous, the mine layout can't just be convenient for a person. It has to be predictable for a machine.
Right. Machines don't like surprises.
No, they don't. So layouts are shifting away from being optimized for human drivers, with switchbacks or steep grades, to maximizing machine efficiency. An autonomous haul truck needs a dedicated, predictable path with a specific gradient to optimize its battery or fuel use.
And to make sure the communication is perfect.
Perfect. Because a little bit of latency in communication can literally stop a 300-ton truck in its tracks. And that costs millions in downtime.
So cybersecurity is no longer just an IT help desk problem. It's a core engineering parameter.
As critical as ventilation or rock mechanics, you cannot have compromised signals going to an autonomous fleet. It's a catastrophic risk.
And it's also about data integrity for your ESG reporting, right? Like monitoring a tailings dam.
Absolutely. If you're digitally monitoring the stability of that dam, that data has to be bulletproof. If it's compromised, your regulatory standing is compromised. It's all connected.
We're seeing the future of this in some big industry alliances, like the one between LKB and ABB.
That partnership is globally significant. It's setting the benchmark for what a fully connected, low-emission underground mine looks like.
And LKB is Sweden's state-owned iron ore producer. Right? They're going deep.
Some of the deepest and most advanced operations in the world. And they're doing it hand in hand with ABB's automation and power systems expertise. Their goals are threefold: optimization, electrification, and safety.
What does that mean in practice?
It means Every piece of equipment, drills, loaders, trucks, even the ventilation systems is linked into one unified digital ecosystem.
Which lets them do predictive maintenance,
Yeah.
fixing things before they break.
Exactly. And it allows for really precise energy management. You only ventilate the parts of the mine where people or equipment are actually working. This is absolutely crucial for them to hit their target of carbon-free production. They're basically creating a blueprint for the modern mine as a giant, smart industrial robot.
Okay, let's pivot a bit to how safety and ESG are driving the physical design of the mine itself. This isn't just about compliance anymore, is it? It's moving from late-stage cleanup to early-stage engineering.
That's a huge shift. And the single biggest, most sensitive part of a mine is often the tailings, the waste material. Historically, these wet tailing dams were huge environmental risks.
So how does designing for that at the beginning change things?
It changes the entire paradigm. Tailings have gone from being a back-end liability to a front-end design driver. So the industry is rapidly adopting things like dry stacking and filtered residues.
Which means they take the water out first.
They filter the water out and recycle it before the waste is stored. So what you're left with is this consolidated inert stack. It has a smaller physical footprint, uses way less water, and it's much easier to rehabilitate progressively. You can get vegetation back on it faster.
And designers are now even planning for secondary resource recovery from that waste.
From day one. They're treating today's waste as a future resource for any residual minerals. It's a profound change.
On the safety side, we're seeing tech that directly tackles old hazards. In the Asia-Pacific region, the bolter miner seems to be the defining technology for a new era of underground safety.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in coal and other layered deposits in places like India and China. A bolter miner is this amazing integrated machine that does three critical things in a single cycle. It cuts the rock, it loads the rock, and it installs the roof support bolts.
And the immediate safety benefit there is.
It dramatically reduces the time that crews have to spend working under an unsupported roof. Rock falls are still the #1 cause of fatalities in underground mining. By putting the support in immediately behind the cutting head, the bolter miner just shrinks that window of risk. It's automating the most dangerous part of the job.
And regulations are pushing this. I know India's Directorate General of Mine Safety has put firm limits on that kind of activity.
They have. So regulators are compelling modernization. If you can't meet the safety rules, you have to adopt the technology. And the tech itself is evolving fast. New models use automated bolt placement algorithms and stability scan imaging to adjust the support pattern based on real-time rock stress data.
And the energy transition plays a part here too with battery electric versions.
Yes, there's huge interest in battery electric variants. They get rid of diesel particulates, which is a major health hazard, and they reduce the heat load, which is critical in really deep, hot mines. The fact that giants like Coal India and China's Shenhua are adopting them shows this is the new standard.
Okay, let's pivot from the technology inside the mine to the huge geopolitical forces all around it. The critical minerals race is just reshaping everything.
It really is. Investment, policy, global power balances, everything.
Let's start on the U.S., which recently made one of the biggest shifts in mineral strategy in decades. They expanded the critical minerals list.
10 new materials. But the three that really stand out are copper, metallurgical coal, and uranium.
Copper's inclusion is a huge deal, isn't it?
It's the immediate game changer. I mean, the industry has been arguing for years that copper is indispensable. You need it for grids, for EVs, for renewables, for defense systems.
Now, the U.S. is a big producer.
It is, but the country still imports over 70% of its key minerals overall. That's a massive strategic vulnerability.
So what does this critical designation actually do for a copper project in, say, Arizona or Nevada?
It's meant to accelerate the whole process. It aims to unlock billions in federal investment and, crucially, to speed up the permitting timelines. It gives projects a path to access financing under things like the Defense Production Act. It's the government signaling that domestic supply is a priority.
So it's about shoring up supply chains by cutting through internal red tape. What about metallurgical coal and uranium?
Met coal is non-negotiable for making steel. Steel underpins infrastructure, defense, everything. So a secure domestic supply is just key to industrial competitiveness. It's separate from the whole debate about thermal coal for power.
And uranium seems like a clear response to global energy security worries.
Precisely. Its reclassification signals a renewed commitment to domestic nuclear energy. The U.S. had become really reliant on state-backed suppliers, like from Central Asia and Russia. The goal here is to reestablish a secure, fully domestic nuclear fuel cycle.
And this pivot isn't just on land either. The U.S. is moving ahead with Pacific offshore leasing.
Yeah, this is a long-term strategic hedge. It's not about immediate extraction. It's about starting the complex environmental and technical work needed to figure out if we can secure future supplies of critical minerals from the deep seabed.
And what are they looking for out there?
The main targets are these things called polymetallic nodules. They're rich in cobalt, nickel, and rare earth elements. Policymakers see this as a way to, eventually reduce that heavy reliance on foreign imports, especially from China, which still dominates the refining game. It's about diversifying where the minerals come from.
Okay, shifting focus to global supply. There is this absolutely enormous greenfield discovery that could redefine everything.
It's a landmark find. In the Andes, right on the Argentina-Chile border, the Vicuña joint venture, that's BHP and London Mining, confirmed a find with a projected total value of almost $500 billion.
US $491 billion. That number is just staggering.
It is, and it comes at such a critical moment. Global copper demand is expected to double by 2035. Industrial silver demand, which you need for solar panels, has jumped 52% in just 5 years. This find could provide that crucial long-term supply we need.
Let's break down the numbers. Copper is confirmed at 12.8 million tons.
With the potential to be almost 25 million tons, even the confirmed metal alone is worth over $128 billion today.
And that's not even counting the gold and silver.
Right. 32.2 million ounces of gold confirmed. That's a potential value near $200 billion. And then you have silver, which is vital for high-tech, estimated at over 800 million ounces. A find like this could really stabilize markets if, and it's a big if, it can get to market reliably.
But mining in the high Andes is never easy.
Oh.
What are the barriers here?
You've hit on the key friction points. First, just the high altitude engineering. That adds, 15 to 22% to your costs right off the bat. Extreme weather, water management, logistics, it's all harder.
And the second barrier is even more complex, right? The binational regulation.
That's the real headache. You have 2 different countries governing the same ore body. So you have different permitting timelines, different environmental standards, different water rights, conflicting tax rules.
So the mining associations are pushing for a unified framework between Argentina and Chile.
They have to. They're warning that if the rules are inconsistent, it'll just scare away foreign investment, especially when other places like Australia and Canada are trying to streamline their own systems.
But if they can pull it off, the local economic impact would be massive.
Transformative. We're talking 5,000 construction jobs, 2,800 permanent operational roles, and the companies have embedded these huge ESG commitments, with BHP pledging 1% of annual EBITDA to local social programs. That kind of thing is just non-negotiable now.
The critical minerals race isn't just about who can dig material out of the ground. It's more and more about who controls the processing. And we're seeing a huge strategic pivot in the Middle East with Vedanta's move into Saudi Arabia.
This is a textbook value chain maneuver. The Saudi government, as part of their Vision 2030, wants to become a global processing and manufacturing hub, not just a raw resource exporter.
So Vedanta is setting up a big copper rod facility there.
Exactly, as a central piece of that strategy. The goal is to anchor a whole downstream manufacturing cluster right there in the kingdom.
What's the strategic advantage for Saudi Arabia beyond just its oil money?
Geography is a big one. It offers much shorter shipping routes to key markets in Asia and Europe compared to, say, South America.
And they're using this clever dual sourcing model.
It's incredibly smart. While they're getting their own domestic mines up and running, they're importing copper concentrates from reliable producers in Chile and Peru. That lets them get the processing plants running and start building market share right away.
This sounds like a direct challenge to the traditional refining centers.
It is. Which brings us to China. Beijing recently launched this new green mining and minerals initiative at the G20, offering cooperation on processing to 19 countries.
On the surface, that sounds great for developing nations. Collaborative.
It's framed that way, yes, as a way to help resource-rich countries capture more value at home instead of just exporting raw dirt. But there's a lot of underlying tension.
The tension being that, despite these friendly offers, China still holds all the cards through its export controls.
Precisely. We saw it again in 2025 when they expanded restrictions on rare earths, gallium, germanium. The risk for these partner nations is that they just end up renewing their dependency. They build a refinery with Chinese capital, but they're still vulnerable if Beijing decides to restrict some other material they need.
So the next few quarters will be a real test.
It will be. We'll see if it leads to genuine capacity building or just, a shift in who they're dependent on.
And not all supply chains are governed by state policies. We have to talk about the shadow economy. specifically the crisis in Venezuela's Orinoco mining arc.
Yeah, this is a really severe global security and compliance issue. In the Orinoco Arc, it's guerrilla factions, including dissident Colombian armed groups that are dominating the major corridors. They basically set up a parallel government.
And what does that parallel government look like on the ground?
It means they're the ones taxing the informal miners, they control the transport routes, and they negotiate directly with smuggling syndicates. It fuels intense local violence and instability.
And where do these illicit minerals end up?
They move through these clandestine routes into Brazil and Colombia and eventually to Caribbean shipping points. We're talking coltan, tin, rare earth concentrates.
And for Western and Asian manufacturers, this must be a compliance nightmare.
A huge one. I mean, if you're a company trying to follow ESG rules or conflict mineral laws, sourcing from these opaque routes makes due diligence almost impossible. It's a stark reminder that you can't have a reliable mineral supply without geopolitical and environmental stability.
Okay, let's turn to the people who are going to operate this new kind of mine. Mining employment is expanding, but it's not about hiring the same old jobs. It's all driven by intense specialization.
That's right. We've identified 5 big interwoven forces that are really shaping the profile of mining jobs for 2026 and beyond.
Let's start with the most obvious one, the critical minerals boom.
That boom is creating the soaring demand for specialists. You need geologists who understand lithium brines, metallurgists who can refine battery-grade nickel.
Supply chain experts who can handle rare earths.
Exactly. And the hiring hotspots are where you'd expect: Canada, the US, that Chile-Argentina corridor, Western Australia.
The second force is digitalization and automation, and that changes the job description for, well, everyone.
It creates this rising need for data scientists, automation engineers, robotics technicians, and remote operations controllers. The salaries here are top tier. We're talking up to $180,000 in the US and over AUD 200,000 in Australia. The skills are shifting to things like Python, SCADA systems, and digital twins.
The third force is a bit less glamorous, just workforce replacement.
But it's so critical. The mining workforce, especially in established countries, is aging. So there's this continuous high turnover. The industry has to hire a ton of people in maintenance and mid-career engineering just to stand still.
Fourth is ESG and decarbonization. This is creating a whole new category of jobs.
Yeah, we're projecting about an 18% growth in what we're calling green jobs for 2026. This isn't just one person in a compliance office. It's environmental specialists, mine closure planners, carbon accounting analysts, people who merge environmental science with financial data.
And the fifth force, commodity cycles, just determines where the hiring is hottest.
Right. Right now, battery metals are hot. So you see strong hiring for nickel in Indonesia, lithium in Australia. That's a big contrast to mature coal regions, where the hiring is shifting more toward rehabilitation and safety rather than just extraction.
So what does a hybrid professional actually look like today? Can you give us an example?
Sure. Take a critical minerals geologist. They can't just rely on core samples anymore. They need to be experts in geochemical modeling and, increasingly, hyperspectral scanning.
Which is what?
It uses the light signature of rocks to quickly identify minerals. So they're part geologist, part data visualization specialist. They turn optical data into mining strategy. It's a totally new skill set.
We have a couple of fascinating regional examples of this workforce transformation. First up, India's coal employment surge. This is jobs on a massive scale.
Yeah, India's latest commercial coal auction has turned into this huge structural employment generator. 3 new blocks alone are projected to create over 66,000 jobs.
Since 2020, the total projection is something like 439,000 new jobs. But these can't be the old jobs.
They're not. And that's India's central challenge, the skills gap. The private operators are hiring GIS technicians to map resources digitally, drone specialists for surveys, but they're struggling to find people.
Yeah. So India needs the coal to meet its energy demand and cut down on imports, but the industry can't find enough hybrid workers who get both the field work and the digital side.
That's the race they're in, a race between energy demand and the supply of specialized talent.
Now let's look at Kazakhstan. They face a different kind of urgency.
Very different. Kazakhstan is vital for global uranium and copper, and they figure they need 20,000 to 25,000 new professionals by 2030. They have these acute gaps in automation, digital mine planning, and safety.
And their response is to build a university.
A phenomenal strategic move. They're building Ulutow University, purpose-built for mining and metallurgy. And crucially, they've partnered with the Colorado School of Mines to bring in global expertise and adapt it to their local needs.
And what are the R&D goals here?
They're aiming to go beyond just basic training. They want to drive R&D in things like ore beneficiation, how to get more metal from the rock and advanced water recovery, which is so critical in Central Asia. It's a real long-term play on human capital.
Okay, we've covered the tech and the talent. Let's look at the huge financial decisions and the structural barriers that are shaping these projects.
The economic reality check.
Right. And Barrick Gold is exploring a really high-stakes move, a potential IPO centered just on its top North American assets, Nevada gold mines.
They're trying to capitalize on what the market calls the Nevada premium. Nevada is seen as maybe the world's most attractive gold district, not just because of the geology, but because of its political and regulatory stability. When markets get shaky, investors run to stable places.
So a regional spin-out like this gives investors a clean shot at that stability.
Exactly. It isolates their most predictable, high-margin assets from the rest of their global portfolio, which has projects in less stable places. It could unlock a much higher valuation for those assets. It also puts a bit of pressure on their partner in Nevada, Newmont, to clarify its own strategy.
Okay, shifting gears completely, let's look at Wyoming's coal landscape. Federal policy just reversed a halt on leasing in the Powder River Basin. That sounds like good news for coal, but is it?
Well, the policy gives a political green light, but the capital markets might not follow. The commercial reality doesn't always line up with the political policy.
How so?
Well, while the policies shift to offer some optimism, U.S. coal demand has been shrinking for 2 decades. The major utilities are still committed to phasing out their coal plants through 2030, no matter who's in office.
So the viability of these new leases depends on actual demand.
It depends on 2 things. First, short-term demand, which we'll see in the Q1 2026 procurement numbers. And second, and this is the big one, whether the economics of carbon capture get good enough to justify the multi-year contracts needed to develop a new mine.
So without those long-term contracts, the new leases are just a future option, not a guaranteed return to big volume.
That's the most accurate way to look at it. The market, not the policy, will ultimately decide what happens.
Okay, let's talk decarbonization barriers. Specifically, the challenge with hydrogen-haul trucks. The tech is there, right?
Yeah.
Anglo American has a prototype running in South Africa.
It is, yeah. The trucks run. The conversation has moved from can they work to can they scale commercially and economically.
Hydrogen has some big advantages over batteries in a mine.
It does. The performance range, torque, endurance is a lot closer to diesel, which is really important in remote, high-altitude operations. But there are 3 huge barriers to scaling up to a whole fleet.
And the first one is just money, cost parity.
Correct. Green hydrogen costs between $4 and $6 a kilogram right now. That's 2 to 3 times more than diesel. The analysts are pretty much all in agreement. Hydrogen has to get below $2 a kilogram for this to make financial sense on a large scale without massive subsidies.
Okay, what about the second barrier? The operational risk and insurance. This one seems less obvious.
But it's a massive issue. Hydrogen needs complex, high-pressure storage, dedicated fueling zones, all things that are unfamiliar to a legacy mine site. And when you factor in that you're operating near blasting zones and explosive storage,
The underwriters get nervous.
extremely nervous. They're demanding evidence-based emergency plans and unified global safety standards before they can even price the risk.
So it's a catch-22. The miners need insurance to get the operational data, but the insurers need the data to price the risk.
It's a really difficult loop to break. Without a global safety standard, the insurance premiums alone could make the whole thing impractical, no matter how good the trucks are.
And the third barrier is the supply chain.
Yeah, it all comes back to infrastructure. Battery electric trucks need a robust grid connection. Hydrogen trucks need a reliable local supply of hydrogen. A full fleet transition requires not just supply contracts, but predictable long-term pricing for the hydrogen itself. Until those local production and distribution chains mature, hydrogen will remain a great technology that's just waiting for the commercial infrastructure to catch up.
All right, before we get to our final synthesis, let's do a quick health check on a key downstream consumer. The global crude steel market. Looking at the data for October 2025.
Yeah, this snapshot is really interesting. It shows some fluctuating demand signals. So world crude steel production for October was 143.3 million tons. The key thing is that's a 5.9% decrease compared to October 2024. So that signals some measurable turbulence.
But it's not the same everywhere. The turbulence is really regionalized.
That's the critical nuance. Asia and Oceania are down 8.2%, and that's heavily driven by China, which was down over 12%. But other regions are showing surprising strength.
Like the Middle East, which is up over 9%.
Yep, driven by all the huge infrastructure projects in the Gulf. And North America is up 4.7%, with the US specifically up a very robust 9.4%. India also showed strong growth, up almost 6%.
So the global headline number suggests contraction, but when you dig in, you see strong pockets of growth.
Which means the health of the industrial economy is really uneven. The strength in the Middle East and North America, plus India, suggests that local projects are providing this vital, resilient floor for steel demand, even as the biggest consumer, China, slows down.
This has been a really comprehensive look at a sector that is just fundamentally changing its DNA.
Yeah.
If we're going to synthesize all this, it seems like the modern mining world is being shaped by two dominant, irresistible forces.
The first is just the critical existential need for transition materials, copper, lithium, rare earths, to fuel the energy transition that's driving these massive geopolitical projects from the Andes to Nevada.
And the second is the necessity of radical automation and digital integration. We saw it with AI and blasting and with digital twins that now dictate the physical layout of the mine.
And here's the connection point. The mining world is not just changing what it extracts anymore. It's changing how it operates and who it hires. Every single major decision.
From Barrick thinking about an IPO, to the design of a tailings facility, to dealing with shadow supply chains,
Is now an ESG, a data, A&D, a geopolitical decision all at the same time. The complexity is just at a level we've never seen before.
So success isn't just about who has the best ore grade. It's about who can integrate all these different pieces, the digital twin, the supply chain, the new hybrid workforce, most effectively.
I'd put it this way. The mining industry is now an information industry that just happens to be housed in rock.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner, moving forward?
We've pretty clearly established that the digital backbone is now the true infrastructure of the modern mine. It's shaping everything. So if data architecture now dictates the physical reality of extraction, how does the industry ensure that the integrity, the security, and importantly, the ethics of that digital flow are as robust as the rock mechanics themselves?
That's the big question. This pursuit of trust in the digital architecture, making sure the data is secure, uncompromised, and ethically sourced, that will be the ultimate differentiator for securing a social license to operate in the future. We'll leave to mull over that one.